Hi everyone, we're live. I'm really sorry that I was late. Um, I don't imagine anyone is here who doesn't follow my Twitter, so you know I'm having a shitty day. That's how it goes. Oh my god, I'm actually gonna sneeze again, just like last time. No, I'm not. Just gotta lean in. It's that kind of day. You have to lean into it and just accept that it's gonna be like that, and try not to get too mad. Okay, we're on to Twitter. Hi Josh. It was, yeah. But we don't need to get into that because we have vampires to talk about. I'm skipping Marjorie Kemp today because I don't know, I was having such a shitty day. I really didn't feel like reading about how awesome God is right now. You know, I'm sure he's having fun up there creating new plagues and things. He loves it. I've just pulled up Marjorie Kemp. Stupid bitch. Not her. But yeah, I've got Dracula here somewhere. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't easy for Marjorie. Never all her haters were trying to get her down. Is anyone getting stuttering? Am I stuttering for anybody? No stutter? Does not sound like it. Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like anyone's getting stutter. Oh. You have to take an antihistamine on camera again. Hey, Father Dog, what's up? There's nothing wrong with taking antihistamines. It's just weird. You know, I just try not to do it on. I try not to do it on camera because it's peculiar. You don't see other YouTube. Well, I'm not a YouTuber, but you don't see a lot of people on YouTube. You know, just hauling through their medications while they're on a live stream, which they supposedly planned. Hey, found them. So we should see a rapid decrease in the amount of sniffling and stopping because I think I'm going to sneeze, but then I don't. Okay. The story so far. Well, you know, there are like 5 videos at the moment because my internet kept cutting out, so I had to make a new video because this one would not reconnect. But we're only up to chapter 3. So the story so far, Jonathan Harker is a lawyer. He came over from England to help a mysterious Transylvanian nobleman, you know, sort out his property deeds or whatever people do when they buy property. I don't know. I'm never going to know that. I don't care. I'm sorry for sniffing. If I blow my nose, it's going to bleed. It's going to be fucking annoying. I'm sorry. No, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not getting paid for this. We're all just having fun. I'm going to sniff a little bit. I'm sorry. Right, so on the way to Castle Dracula, everyone Jono meets is like, you know, don't go there. It's evil. They all like cry about him like he's going to his death and try and give him crucifixes and cross themselves all the time. And he's like, these quaint people and their ways. I must ask Count Dracula about them. Because Jonathan Harker is above all things an Englishman. I mean, I think it's his only personality trait, kind of. Apart from loyalty. Jono's loyal. I mean, when there aren't a bunch of fine Dracula bitches around. Also, he's starting to click that his mysterious host, who he is unnaturally strong. There are no servants in the castle, and he has never seen him eat or drink. So Jono's starting to think maybe this Count Dracula guy might have a problem. There might be something wrong with him. And that was a bit scary. Sorry. But much more scarier was the fact that Jono has just realized he is a prisoner in the castle. Castle Dracula, in case you somehow didn't know which castle I was talking about. Yeah. Also, Count Dracula, he has very long white mustaches. I'm thinking really long, like Fu Manchu long, but they probably aren't. He's just describing that portrait of Vlad the Impaler that we've all seen. And the hairy palms. He's got hairy palms. So I guess we know what Dracula does all day up in his castle by himself. It hasn't made him go blind. So, he hasn't gone too far. Next time I'm going to try and remember to take an antihistamine 20 minutes before the stream. I probably won't, but I'm going to try. Yes. Sorry, I'm just kind of enchanted. I lost myself for a second. I was kind of enchanted by thinking about Jonathan Harker showing up to Castle Hogan. And Hulk Hogan welcomes him in. Sorry, it's raining. Shit, it's raining. Okay. It is possible that my internet will cut out since it's raining. So if I change to mobile data now in the middle of the stream, do you think the stream will go down? Should I start it again on mobile data? Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, so we're 10 minutes in. I've been sniffling a lot. It started to rain. I'm probably going to go offline. Do you all think that I should just end this stream, delete it, go onto mobile data, and put up another stream, or should we just take our chances and start reading? I mean, first reply will win, because obviously I'm not waiting for a poll or anything. I am trying to keep an eye out for my cats, because it's raining a lot out there. Good point. Very good point. Okay, then. It's decided. We will crack on. Let's see what we can see within Castle Dracula. I'm trying to think if there's anything I've forgotten, but so far there's nothing. Jono did break his shaving mirror, and the Count freaked out because he saw a little bit of blood, and he went all mental about it. But yeah. The castle is a veritable prison, and I am a prisoner, was the end of chapter 2. Chapter 1. Jonathan Harker's journal. continued, and don't worry, we are going to change from the journal to other people's letters and memoranda and all that. When I found that I was a prisoner, a sort of wild feeling came over me. I rushed up and down the stairs, trying every door and peering out of every window I could find, but after a little, the conviction of my helplessness overpowered all other feelings. When I look back after a few hours, I think I must have been mad for the time, for I behaved much as a rat does in a trap. When, however, the conviction had come to me that I was helpless, I sat down quietly as I've ever done anything in my life, and began to think over what was best to be done. I am thinking still, and as yet have come to no definite conclusion. Of one thing only am I certain, that it is no use making my ideas known to the Count. He knows well that I am imprisoned, and as he has done it himself, and has doubtless his own motives for it, he would only deceive me if I trusted him fully with the facts. So far as I can see, my only plan will be to keep my knowledge and my fears to myself, and my eyes open. I am, I know, either being deceived like a baby by my own fears, or else I am in desperate straits. And if the latter be so, I need and shall need all my brains to get through. He just doesn't have that many brains to use. Although I liked the idea of just asking Count Dracula, how do you get out of your prison castle, did kind of cross his mind. I had hardly come to this conclusion when I heard the great door below shut and knew that the Count had returned. He did not come at once into the library, so I went cautiously to my own room and found him making the bed. This was odd, but only confirmed what I had all along thought, that there were no servants in the house. When later I saw him through the chink of the hinges of the door laying the table in the dining room, I was assured of it. For if he does himself all these menial offices, surely it is proof that there is no one else to do them. Got a hair stuck on my lip gloss. This gave me a fright, for if there is no one else in the castle, it must have been the Count himself, who was the driver of the coach that brought me here. This is a terrible thought. For if so, what does it mean that he could control the wolves, as he did, by only holding up his hand in silence? How was it that all the people at Bistritz and on the coach had some terrible fear for me? What meant the giving of the crucifix, of the garlic, of the wild rose, of the mountain ash? Bless that good woman who hung a crucifix around my neck, for it is a comfort and a strength to me whenever I touch it. It is odd that a thing which I have been taught to regard with disfavour and as idolatrous should in a time of loneliness and trouble be of help. Is it that there is something in the essence of the thing itself, or that it is a medium, a tangible help in conveying memories of sympathy and comfort? Sometime, if it may be, I must examine this matter and try and make up my mind about it. In the meantime, I must find out all I can about Count Dracula, as it may help me to understand. Tonight he may talk of himself, if I turn the conversation that way. I must be very careful, however, not to awake his suspicion. And just before we move on, if you were thinking that Jono was an atheist or something because he's been taught to find the crucifix idolatrous, he's just a Protestant. Like, the crucifix is the little, the little wee cross with the little wee Jesus on it. Protestants don't wear that one. They have the plain cross because Jesus isn't still on the cross. He got off of it and went to heaven. And that is what my mother told me when I wanted to buy, the objectively cooler cross. Not that I'm a Presbyterian. I just thought it was midnight. I have had a long talk with the Count. I asked him a few questions on Transylvanian history, and he warmed up to the subject wonderfully. In his speaking of things and people, and especially of battles, he spoke as if he had been present at them all. This he afterwards explained by saying that to a boyar the pride of his house and name is his own pride, that their glory is his glory, that their fate is his fate. Whenever he spoke of his house, he always said we, and spoke almost in the plural, like a king speaking. I wish I could put down all he said exactly as he said it, but to me it was most fascinating. It seemed to have in it a whole history of the country. He grew excited as he spoke, and walked about the room, pulling his great white moustache and grasping anything on which he laid his hands, as though he would crush it by main strength. One thing he said, which I shall put down as nearly as I can, for it tells in its way the story of his race. I have to pronounce a word, I don't know how to. Got this, got this. We Zakelis have a right to be proud, for in our veins there is the blood of many brave races who fought as the lion fights for lordship. Here, in the whirlpool of European races, the Ugaric tribe bore down from Iceland the fighting spirit which Thor and Woden gave them, which their berserkers displayed to such fell intent on the seaboards of Europe, aye, and of Asia and Africa too, till the peoples thought that the werewolves themselves had come. Here too, when they came, they found the Huns, whose warlike fury had swept the earth like a living flame, till the dying peoples held that in their veins ran the blood of those old witches who, expelled from Scythia, had mated with the devils in the desert. Fools! Fools! What devil or what witch was ever so great as Attila, whose blood is in these veins? He held up his arms. Is it a wonder that we were a conquering race, that we were proud, that when the Magyar, the Lombard, the Avar, the Bulgar, or the Turk poured his thousands on our frontiers, we drove them back? Is it strange that when Arpad and his legions swept through the Hungarian fatherland, he found us here when he reached the frontier? That the Honfoglalas was completed there. And when the Hungarian flood swept eastward, the Zakelis were claimed as kindred by the victorious Magyars, and to us for centuries was trusted the guarding of the frontier of Turkey land. Aye, and more than that, endless duty of the frontier guard, for, as the Turks say, water sleeps, an enemy is sleepless. Who more gladly than we throughout the four nations received the bloody sword, or at its warlike call flocked quicker to the standard of the king? When was redeemed that great shame of my nation, the shame of Kosova, when the flags of the Volok and the Magyar went down beneath the crescent? Who was it but one of my own race who as voivoda crossed the Danube and beat the Turk on his own ground? That was a Dracula indeed. Woe was it that his own unworthy brother, when he had fallen, sold his people to the Turk and brought the shame of slavery on them. Was it not this Dracula indeed who inspired that other of his race, who in a later age again and again brought his forces over the great river into Turkeyland, who, when he was beaten back, came again and again and again, though he had to come alone from the bloody field where his troops were being slaughtered, since he knew that he alone could only triumph. They said that he thought only of himself. Bah! What good are peasants without a leader? Where ends the war without a brain and heart to conduct it? Again, when after the Battle of Mohacs we threw off the Hungarian yoke, we of the Dracula blood were amongst their leaders, for our spirit would not brook that we were not free. Oh, young sir, the Zakelis and the Dracula, as their heart's blood, their brains, and their swords, can boast a record that mushroom growths like the Habsburgs and the Romanovs can never reach. The warlike days are over. Blood is too precious a thing in these days of dishonourable peace, and the glories of the great races are as a tale that is told. It was by this time close on morning, and we went to bed. Memorandum: this diary seems horribly like the beginning of the Arabian Nights, for everything has to break off at cockcrow, or like the ghost of Hamlet's father. So, sorry, I swear to God it will bleed if I try and blow my nose, I'm sorry. There were a lot of words in there that I did not know how to pronounce. So, if you do, congratulations, and I am sorry I didn't look them up. But this is kind of a blind read. I've read it before, but not in years and years, so I didn't really want to skip ahead. 12th of May. Let me begin with facts. Bare, meagre facts. verified by books and figures, and of which there can be no doubt. I must not confuse them with experiences, which will have to rest on my own observation or my memory of them. Last evening, when the Count came from his room, he began by asking me questions on legal matters and on the doing of certain kinds of business. I had spent the day wearily over books, and simply to keep my mind occupied, went over some of the matters I had been examined in at Lincoln's Inn, the lawyer school. There was a certain method in the Count's inquiries, so I shall try to put them down in sequence. The knowledge may somehow or sometime be useful to me. First, he asked if a man in England might have 2 solicitors or more. I told him he might have a dozen if he wished, but that it would not be wise to have more than 1 solicitor engaged in one transaction, as only one could act at a time, and that to change would be certain to militate against his interest. He seemed thoroughly to understand, and went on to ask if there would be any practical difficulty in having one man attend, say, banking, and another to look after shipping, in case local help were needed in a place far from the home of the banking solicitor. I asked him to explain more fully, so that I might not by any chance mislead him, and he said, "I shall illustrate. Your friend and mine, Mr. Peter Hawkins, from under the shadow of your beautiful cathedral at Exeter, which is far from London, buys for me, through your good self, my place at London." Good. Now here let me say frankly, lest you should think it strange that I have sought the services of one so far off from London instead of some one resident there, that my motive was that no local interest might be served save my wish only, and as one of London residents might perhaps have some purpose of himself or friend to serve, I went thus afield to seek my agent, whose labours should be only to my interest. Now, suppose I, who have much of affairs, wish to ship goods, say, to Newcastle, or Durham, or Harwich, or Dover. Might it not be that it could with more ease be done by consigning to one in these ports? I answered that certainly it would be most easy, but that we solicitors had a system of agency, one for the other, so that local work could be done locally on instruction from any solicitor, so that the client, simply placing himself in the hands of one man, could have his wishes carried out by him without further trouble. But, said he, I could be at liberty to direct myself. Is it not so? Of course, I replied, and such is often done by men of business, who do not like the whole of their affairs to be known by any one person. Good, he said, and then went on to ask about the means of making consignments and the forms to be gone through, and of all sorts of difficulties which might arise, but by forethought could be guarded against. I explained all these things to him to the best of my ability, and he certainly left me under the impression that he would have made a wonderful solicitor, for there was nothing that he did not think of or foresee. For a man who was never in the country, and who evidently did not do much in the way of business, his knowledge and acumen were wonderful. When he had satisfied himself on these points of which he had spoken, and I had verified all as well as I could by the books available, he suddenly stood up and said, "Have you written since your first letter to our friend Mr. Peter Hawkins, or to any other?" It was with some bitterness in my heart that I answered that I had not, that as yet I had not seen any opportunity of sending letters to anybody. "Then write now, my young friend," he said, laying a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Write to our friend, and to any other, and say, if it will please you, that you shall stay with me until a month from now." "Do you wish me to stay so long?" I asked. My heart grew cold at the thought. "I desire it much. Nay, I will take no refusal. When your master, employer, what you will, engaged that someone should come on his behalf, it was understood that my needs only were to be consulted. I have not stinted. Is it not so?" What could I do but bow acceptance? It was Mr. Hawkins' interest, not mine, and I had to think of him, not myself. And besides, while Count Dracula was speaking, there was that in his eyes and in his bearing which made me remember that I was a prisoner, and that if I wished it, I could have no choice. The Count saw his victory in my bow, and his mastery in the trouble of my face, for he began at once to use them, but in his own smooth, resistless way. I pray you, my good young friend, that you will not discourse of things other than business in your letters. It will doubtless please your friends to know that you are well, and that you look forward to getting home to them. Is it not so? As he spoke, he handed me 3 sheets of notepaper and 3 envelopes. They were all of the thinnest foreign post, and looking at them, then at him, and noticing his quiet smile with the sharp canine teeth laying over the red underlip, I understood as well as if he had spoken that I should be careful what I wrote, for he would be able to read it. So I determined to write only formal notes now, but to write fully to Mr. Hawkins in secret, and also to Mina, for to her I could write in shorthand, which would puzzle the Count if he did see it. Mina's his fiancée. I think everyone knows that by now. Can't remember if I covered it in the recap. When I had written my 2 letters, I sat quiet, reading a book whilst the Count wrote several notes, referring as he wrote them to some books on his table. Then he took up my 2 and placed them with his own, and put by his writing materials, after which, the instant the door had closed behind him, I leaned over and looked at the letters, which were face down on the table. I felt no compunction in doing so, for under the circumstances I felt I should protect myself in every way I could. One of the letters was directed to Samuel F. Billington, number 7, The Crescent, Whitby. Another to Herr Leutner, Varna. The third was to Coates and Co., London. Coates. And the fourth to Herrn Klopstock und Billreuth, bankers, Budapest. They're difficult names for me. I was just about to look at them when I saw the door handle move. I sank back in my seat, having just had time to replace the letters as they had been and to resume my book, before the Count, holding still another letter in his hand, entered the room. He took up the letters on the table and stamped them carefully, and then turning to me said, I trust you will forgive me, but I have much work to do in private this evening. You will, I hope, find all things as you wish. At the door he turned, and after a moment's pause said, Let me advise you, my dear young friend, nay, let me warn you with all seriousness, that should you leave those rooms, you will not by any chance go to sleep in any other part of the castle. It is old and has many memories, and there are bad dreams for those who sleep unwisely. Be warned. Should sleep now or ever overcome you, or be like to do, then haste to your own chamber or to these rooms, for your rest will then be safe. But if you be not careful in this respect, then... He finished his speech in a gruesome way, for he motioned with his hands as if he were washing them. I quite understood. My only doubt was as to whether any dream could be more terrible than the unnatural, horrible net of gloom and mystery which seemed closing around me. So, he's getting there. Starting to think maybe something's not right with this Count Dracula fellow. Later. I endorse the last words written, but this time there is no doubt in question. I shall not fear to sleep in any place where he is not. I have placed the crucifix over the head of my bed. I imagine that my rest is thus freer from dreams, and there it shall remain. When he left me, I went to my room. After a little while, not hearing any sound, I came out and went up the stone stair to where I could look out towards the south. There was some sense of freedom in the vast expanse, inaccessible though it was to me, as compared with the narrow darkness of the courtyard. Looking out on this, I felt that I was indeed in prison, and I seemed to want a breath of fresh air, though it were of the night. Victorians thought night air was bad for you. Dunces. I am beginning to feel this nocturnal existence tell on me. It is destroying my nerve. I start at my own shadow, and am full of all sorts of horrible imaginings. God knows that there is ground for my terrible fear in this accursed place. I looked out over the beautiful expanse, bathed in soft yellow moonlight that was almost as light as day. In the soft light, the distant hills became melted, and the shadows in the valleys and gorges of velvety blackness. The mere beauty seemed to cheer me. There was peace and comfort in every breath I drew. As I leaned from the window, my eye was caught by something moving a story below me and somewhat to my left, where I imagine, from the order of the rooms, that the windows of the Count's own room would look out. The window at which I stood was tall and deep, stone mullioned, and though weather-worn, was still complete, but it was evidently many a day since the case had been there. I drew back behind the stonework and looked carefully out. I don't have time to explain the windows of medieval castles, it's not important. Yes, they did think everything was bad for you except for tea and racism. Although nowadays, a lot of British people think everything's bad for you apart from tea and transphobia. So, have we come that far? Perhaps not. I drew back behind the stonework and looked carefully out of the window. What I saw was the Count's head coming out from the window. I did not see the face, but I knew the man by the neck and the movement of his back and arms. In any case, I could not mistake the hands which I had had so many opportunities of studying. I was at first interested and somewhat amused, for it is wonderful how small a matter will interest and amuse a man when he is a prisoner. But my very feelings changed to repulsion and terror when I saw the whole man slowly emerge from the window and begin to crawl down the castle wall over that dreadful abyss, face down, with his cloak spreading out around him like great wings. At first I could not believe my eyes. I thought it was some trick of the moonlight, some weird effect of shadow. But I kept looking, and it could be no delusion. I saw the fingers and toes grasp the corners of the stones, worn clear of the mortar by the stress of years, and by thus using every projection and inequality move downwards with considerable speed, just as a lizard moves along a wall. What manner of man is this? Or what manner of creature is it in the semblance of man? I feel the dread of this horrible place overpowering me. I am in fear, an awful fear, and there is no escape for me. I am encompassed about with terrors that I dare not think of. ... Because Jono's a little bit dramatic. Yeah, I mean, basically. I'm really glad it's still up. Oh, sorry. I was thinking, why am I not actually saying words? You may have been thinking it too, but it was because I needed a drink. Sponsored by everyone's favourite element, water. 15th of May. Once more have I seen the Count go out in his lizard fashion. He moved downwards in a sidelong way, some 100 feet down, and a good deal to the left. He vanished into some hole or window. When his head had disappeared, I leaned out to try and see more, but without avail. The distance was too great to allow a proper angle of sight. I knew he had left the castle now, and thought to use the opportunity to explore more than I had dared to do as yet. I went back to the room, and taking a lamp, tried all the doors. They were all locked, as I had expected, and the locks were comparatively new. But when I went down the stone stairs to the hall where I had entered originally, I found I could pull back the bolts easily enough and unhook the great chains, but the door was locked and the key was gone. The key must be in the Count's room. I must watch should his door be unlocked, so that I may get it and escape. I went on to make a thorough examination of the various stairs and passages, and to try the doors that opened from them. 1 or 2 small rooms near the hall were open, but there was nothing to see in them except old furniture, dusty with age and moth-eaten. At last, however, I found one door at the top of the stairway which, though it seemed to be locked, gave a little under pressure. I tried it harder, and found that it was not really locked, but that the resistance came from the fact that the hinges had fallen somewhat, and the heavy door rested on the floor. Here was an opportunity which I might not have again, so I exerted myself, and with many efforts forced it back so that I could enter. I was now in a wing of the castle further to the right than the rooms I knew, and a story lower down. From the windows I could see that the suite of rooms lay along to the south of the castle, the windows of the end room looking out both west and south. On the latter side, as well as the former, there was a great precipice. The castle was built on the corner of a great rock, so that on 3 sides it was quite impregnable, and great windows were placed here where sling or bow or culverin could not reach, and consequently light and comfort impossible to a position which had to be secured. Don't know if you heard that. Come on. She has to be invited in, the little beast. Come in. Don't you want the people to see you? Stupid cow. It's Flora, if you're wondering. Consequently, light and comfort, impossible to a position which had to be guarded, were secured. To the west was a great valley, and then, rising far away, great jagged mountain fastnesses, rising peak on peak, the sheer rocks studded with mountain ash and thorn, whose roots clung in cracks and crevices and crannies of the stone. This was evidently the portion of the castle occupied by the ladies in bygone days, for the furniture had more air of comfort than any I had seen. The windows were just imagining that the rest of Dracula's castle was just like a mattress with no bed frame and the hot couch and the aquarium with the iguana in it, you know. Oh, this place. These ladies have a duvet cover. They know what's up. The windows were curtainless, and the yellow moonlight, flooding in through the diamond panes, enabled one to even see colours, whilst it softened the wealth of dust which lay over all, and disguised in some measure the ravages of time and the moth. My lamp seemed to be of little effect in the brilliant moonlight, but I was glad to have it with me, for there was a dread loneliness in the place which chilled my heart and made my nerves tremble. Still, it was better than living alone in the rooms which I had come to hate from the presence of the Count, and after trying a little to school my nerves, I found a soft quietude come over me. Here I am, sitting at a little oak table where in old times possibly some fair lady sat to pen, with much thought and many blushes, her ill-spelt love letter, and writing in my diary in shorthand all that has happened since I closed it last. It is 19th century, up to date with a vengeance. And yet, unless my senses deceive me, the old centuries had, and have, powers of their own which mere modernity cannot kill. Yeah, it's the girl's wing. It's for girls. Also, why is her love letter poorly spelled, Jono? And if there wasn't standardized spelling back then, you can't criticize her for it. Oh well, for the time, he was probably a great guy. Later, the morning of the 16th of May. God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past. Whilst I live on here, there is but one thing to hope for, that I may not go mad, if indeed I be not mad already. If I be sane, then surely it is maddening to think that of all the foul things that lurk in this hateful place, the Count is the least dreadful to me, that to him alone I can look for safety, even though this be only whilst I can serve his purpose. Great God, merciful God, let me be calm, for out of that way lies madness indeed. I begin to get new lights on certain things which have puzzled me. Up to now, I never quite knew what Shakespeare meant when he made Hamlet say, "My tablets, quick, my tablets, 'tis meet that I put it down," etc. For now, feeling as though my own brain were unhinged, or as if the shock had come which must end in its undoing, I turned to my diary for repose. The habit of entering accurately must help soothe me. Love when a guy enters accurately. Sorry, I'm trying to do a good reading. And sniff. The Count's mysterious warning frightened me at the time. It frightens me more now when I think of it, for in future he has a fearful hold upon me. I shall fear to doubt what he may say. When I had written in my diary, and had fortunately replaced the book and pen in my pocket, I felt sleepy. The Count's warning came into my mind, but I took a pleasure in disobeying it. The sense of sleep was upon me, and with it the obstinacy which sleep brings as outrider. The soft moonlight soothed, and the wide expanse without gave a sense of freedom which refreshed me. I determined not to return tonight to the gloom-haunted rooms, but to sleep here, where of old ladies had sat and sung and lived sweet lives, whilst their gentle breasts were sad for their menfolk away in the midst of remorseless wars. I've never known mine to have many emotions other than anger, but yeah, maybe they feel sad sometimes. I don't know. Consult your GP, I guess. Sad. It's like the scared butt. Like, no one knows what I mean when I say the scared butt of horror movies, but you do as soon as I explain it. Like, a female character in a horror movie, always a woman, never a man, sees something scary down a dark hall and she's like, "Hello?" And then you cut to her butt looking scared, moving down the corridor. Like, sometimes she's holding a phone or a torch or something. And they're like, "Oh, we're just looking at the torch." No, you're looking at the scared butt. And I wouldn't mind if they did it to men as well. I'm just sick of looking at women's scared butts. Don't think it's a phrase Bram Stoker thought would be associated with his work. It's true, though. Sorry, my hair's just kind of there today. It's just kind of where it is. Oh, remorseless wars. I drew a great couch out of its place near the corner, so that as I lay, it's next time you watch a horror movie, you'll see it, probably. I think being sick of any kind of butt would come as a shock to Byron. Yeah. As I lay, I could look at the lovely view to east and south, and unthinking of and uncaring for the dust, compose myself for sleep. I suppose I must have fallen asleep. I hope so, but I fear for all that followed was startlingly real. So real that now, sitting here in the broad, full sunlight of the morning, I cannot in the least believe that it was all sleep. I was not alone. The room was the same, unchanged in any way since I came into it. I could see along the floor in the brilliant moonlight my own footsteps marked where I had disturbed the long accumulation of dust. In the moonlight opposite me were three young women, ladies by their dress and manner. I thought at the time I must be dreaming when I saw them, for though the moonlight was behind them, they threw no shadow on the floor. They came close to me and looked at me for some time, and then whispered together. Two were dark and had high aquiline noses like the Count, and great, dark, piercing eyes that seemed to be almost red when contrasted with the pale yellow moon. The other was fair as can be, with great wavy masses of golden hair and eyes like pale sapphires. I seemed somehow to know her face, and to know it in connection with some dreamy fear, but I could not recollect at the moment how or where. All three had brilliant white teeth that shone like pearls against the ruby of their voluptuous lips. There was something about them that made me uneasy, some longing and at the same time some deadly fear. I felt in my heart a wicked, burning desire that they would kiss me with those red lips. It is not good to note this down, lest some day it should meet Mina's eyes and cause her pain, but it is the truth. They whispered together, and then they all three laughed. Such a silvery, musical laugh, but as hard as though the sound never could have come through the softness of human lips. It was like the intolerable, tingling sweetness of water glasses when played on by a cunning hand. The fair girl shook her hair coquettishly, and the other two urged her on. One said, "Go on. You are first, and we shall follow. Yours is the right to begin." The other added, "He is young and strong. There are kisses for us all." I lay quiet, looking out under my eyelashes in an agony of delightful anticipation. The fair girl advanced and bent over me till I could feel the movement of her breath upon me. Sweet it was in one sense, honey sweet, and sent the same tingling through the nerves as her voice, but with a bitter underlying sweet, a bitter offensiveness, as one smells in blood. I was afraid to raise my eyelids, but looked out and saw perfectly under the lashes. Yeah. I mean, I love butts as much as the next person, and I love vampire babes. I'm not attracted to vampire babes, though. I want to be a vampire babe, but not like a subservient one. Can you imagine all the Victorian women reading this? Like, I hope my great-great-grandchildren are Twilight moms. I was afraid to raise my eyelids, but looked out and saw perfectly under the lashes. The girl went on her knees and bent over me, simply gloating. There was a deliberate voluptuousness which was both thrilling and repulsive, and as she arched her neck, she actually licked her lips like an animal. Do animals do that? Till I could see in the moonlight the moisture shining on the scarlet lips and on the red tongue as it lapped the white, sharp teeth. Lower and lower went her head, as the lips went below the range of my mouth and chin, and seemed about to fasten on my throat. Then she paused, and I could hear the churning sound of her tongue as it licked her teeth and lips, and could feel the hot breath on my neck. I just want to take a second here. I don't know if Bram Stoker thought this part was sexy, because she's just kind of licking her own face a lot, very close to Jono. Is that like, is that something the Fortnite teens are into or whatever? I don't know. Then the skin of my throat began to tingle as one's flesh does when the hand that is to tickle it approaches nearer and nearer. I could feel the soft, shivering touch of the lips on the super-sensitive skin of my throat, and the hard dents of two sharp teeth, just touching and pausing there. I closed my eyes in a languorous ecstasy and waited. waited with beating heart. Jono! Jono, you dog! He's gonna cheat on Mina with this self-face licking, churning, tonguing vampire bitch. Jono. How could you do Mina wrong like that? But hold up. Don't be afraid. But at that instant, another sensation swept through me as quick as lightning. I was conscious of the presence of the Count, and of his being as if lapped in a storm of fury. As my eyes opened involuntarily, I saw his strong hand grasp the slender neck of the fair woman, and with giant's power draw it back. The blue eyes transformed with fury, the white teeth champing with rage, and the fair cheeks blazing red with passion. But the Count! Never did I imagine such wrath and fury, even to the demons of the pit. His eyes were positively blazing. The red light in them was lurid, as if the flames of hellfire blazed behind them. His face was deathly pale, and the lines of it were hard like drawn wires. The thick eyebrows that met over the nose now seemed like a heaving bar of white-hot metal. I think that part's comical, but okay. With a fierce sweep of his arm, he hurled the woman from him, and then motioned to the others as though he was beating them back. It was the same imperious gesture that I had seen used to the wolves. In a voice which, though low and almost in a whisper, seemed to cut through the air and then ring round the room, he said, "How dare you touch him, any of you? How dare you cast eyes on him when I had forbidden it? Back, I tell you all. This man belongs to me. Beware how you meddle with him, or you'll have to deal with me." The fair girl, with a laugh of ribald coquetry, turned to answer him. "You yourself never loved. You never love." Oh shit, John is in the middle of some ex drama. On this, the other women joined, and such a mirthless, hard, soulless laughter rang through the room that it almost made me faint to hear. It seemed like the pleasure of fiends. Then the Count turned, after looking at my face attentively, and said in a soft whisper, "Yes, I too can love. You yourselves can tell it from the past. Is it not so? Well, now I promise you that when I am done with him, you shall kiss him at your will. Now go, go, I must awaken him, for there is work to be done." Dracula and Jonathan are having a gay moment. I'm sorry, it's not going to be as gay as Carmilla, but what could be? What could be? "Are we to have nothing tonight?" said one of them, with a low laugh, as she pointed to the bag which she had thrown upon the floor, and which moved as though there were some living thing within it. For answer, he nodded his head. One of the women jumped forward and opened it. If my ears did not deceive me, there was a gasp and a low wail, as of a half-smothered child. The women closed round whilst I was aghast with horror, but as I looked they disappeared, and with them the dreadful bag. There was no door near them, and they could not have passed me without my noticing. They simply seemed to fade into the rays of the moonlight and pass out through the window, for I could see outside the dim, shadowy forms for a moment before they entirely faded away. Then the horror overcame me, and I sank down unconscious. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to, well, I mean, not enough information, frankly. Like, we need to know how hungry these wives were when they tried to eat your lawyer. We just don't know. We just don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the joke. The simpleton. Oh, yes, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Don't particularly want to say the word on my video because my recommendations are already really messed up. But I would never ignore you guys. You're the best part about reading this book. Or would I just sit and read a book by myself, not have anyone to comment about it? Right. You didn't have to delete it. It's fine. But yeah, very much the theme of that chapter. Would you like to carry on to chapter 4? I know that in New Zealand it's 5:30, and some of you might be wanting to like leave work or cook dinner or whatever. But if anyone wants me to just carry on right now, I'm fine for another chapter. As usual, first comment gets it. I'm not running a poll. Awesome. Actually, no. First comment doesn't always get it. Whatever Josh says, I'm going to do. Chapter 4. Sorry. I don't know what's wrong with this chair, really. Chapter 4, Jonathan Harker's journal continued. I promise it's not just his journal. I hope it's not just his journal. Jonathan Harker's journal continued. I awoke in my own bed. If it be that I had not dreamt, the Count must have carried me here. I tried to satisfy myself on the subject. That's okay, Alex. Thank you so much for being here. It'll be on the channel so you can watch the rest of it, whenever. Thank you for being here. Does mean a lot. Yeah, sleep well and don't have scary dreams about vampire babes and Dracula throwing babies to them and that kind of thing. I think when everyone was making jokes about how they would kill baby Hitler, like after Jeb Bush went all nuts about it and it cost him the whole race. I'm pretty sure mine was I would put baby Hitler in a burlap sack and throw him to Dracula's 3 awful wives, which is kind of a niche joke, honestly. I woke in my own bed. If it be that I had not dreamt, the Count must have carried me here. I tried to satisfy myself on the subject, but could not arrive at any unquestionable result. To be sure, there were certain small evidences, such as that my clothes were folded and laid by in a manner which was not my habit. My watch was still unwound, and I am rigorously accustomed to wind it the last thing before going to bed, and many such details. But these things are no proof, for they may have been evidences that my mind was not as usual, and from some cause or another, I had certainly been much upset. I must watch for proof. Of one thing I am glad, if it was that the Count carried me here and undressed me. He must have been hurried in his task, for my pockets are intact. I am sure this diary would have been a mystery to him which he would not have brooked. He would have taken or destroyed it. It's in shorthand, remember. As I look round this room, although it has been to me so full of fear, it is now a sort of sanctuary. For nothing can be more dreadful than those awful women who are, waiting to suck my blood. You didn't have to delete the messages, Josh. That's funny. Yes. There's a lot of evidence for Count Dracula. There's a lot of homoerotic stuff in here, but homoerotic stuff between men is, well, it was then as it is now, different when it's not like two babe schoolgirls, which is so disgusting on so many levels, which is why Carmilla gets to be hornier than Dracula in the gay parts. But yeah, Jono has retreated to his bedroom where he can hide from those awful women. He's a man ahead of his time. Oh, Prison Planet, what's up? I'm sorry, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to Jonathan Harker being compared to Prison Planet. 18th of May. I've been down to look at that room again in daylight, for I must know the truth. When I got to the doorway at the top of the stairs, I found it closed. It had been so forcibly driven against the jamb that part of the woodwork was splintered. I could see that the bolt of the lock had not been shot, but the door is fastened from the inside. I fear it was no dream, and must act on this surmise. 19th of May. Well, you must act on it, but not today. 19th of May. I am surely in the toils. Last night the Count asked me in the suavest tones to write 3 letters. One saying that my work here was nearly done, and that I should start for home within a few days. Another, that I was starting on the next morning from the time of the letter, and the third that I had left the castle and arrived at Bistritz. I would fain have rebelled, but felt that in the present state of things it would be madness to quarrel openly with the Count whilst I am so absolutely in his power, and to refuse would be to excite his suspicion and to arouse his anger. He knows that I know too much, and that I must not live lest I be dangerous to him. My only chance is to prolong my opportunities. Something may occur which will give me a chance to escape. I saw in his eyes something of that gathering wrath which was manifest when he hurled that fair woman from him. He explained to me that posts were few and uncertain, and that my writing now would ensure ease of mind to my friends. And he assured me with so much impressiveness that he would countermand the later letters, which would be held over at Bistritz until due time, in case chance would admit of my prolonging my stay. That to oppose him would have been to create new suspicion. I therefore pretended to fall in with his views, and asked him what dates I should put on the letters. He calculated a minute, and then said, the first should be June 12th, the second, June 19th, and the third, June 29th. I know now the span of my life. God help me. 28th of May. He took a few recovery days. That's nice. There was a chance of escape, or at any rate of being able to send word home. A band of Sgani have come to the castle and are encamped in the courtyard. These Sgani are travellers. It seems like they are an ethnic group of their own, so I don't know if I should call them Roma. Yeah, that's what's great about it. There's some horrible things happening, and but we can still stop to really enjoy the or to just talk about butts, which didn't really come up. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid saying the G word because we don't really say that anymore. It's not cool. But since the Sgani have come to the castle, I think they're like an ethnic people. So is calling them Roma going to offend them more? I'm going to call them travelers. Yeah, I'm going to call them travelers and say that I gave it some thought right now, and oh, for fuck's sake. You'll see. You'll see when I get up to it. Should have skimmed the whole paragraph first. 28th of May. There is a chance of escape, or at any rate of being able to send word home. A band of Sagani have come to the castle and are encamped in the courtyard. These Sagani are Roma. I have notes of them in my book. They are peculiar to this part of the world, though allied to the ordinary Roma all the world over. There are thousands of them in Hungary and Transylvania, who are almost outside all law. They attach themselves as a rule to some great noble or boyar, and call themselves by his name. They are fearless and without religion, save superstition, and they talk only their own varieties of the Romany tongue. See, he uses the word Romany like seconds later. I shall write some letters home and shall try to get them to have them posted. I have already spoken them through my window to begin acquaintanceship. They took their hats off and made obeisance and many signs, which, however, I could not understand any more than I could understand their spoken language. ... I have written the letters. Mina's is in shorthand, and I simply asked Mr. Hawkins to communicate with her. To her I have explained my situation, but without the horrors which I may only surmise. It would shock and frighten her to death were I to expose my heart to her. Should the letters not carry, then the Count shall not yet know my secret or the extent of my knowledge. ... I feel like that when I'm feeling really tired. Everything ends with an ellipsis. I have given the letters. I threw them through the bars of my window with a gold piece and made what signs I could to have them posted. The man who took them pressed them to his heart and bowed, and then put them in his cap. I could do no more. I stole back to the study and began to read. As the Count did not come in, I have written here. ... The Count has come. He sat down beside me and said in his smoothest voice as he opened 2 letters, "The Sagani has given me these, of which, though I know not whence they come, I shall, of course, take care. See," he must have looked at it, "one is from you, and to my friend Peter Hawkins. The other—" Here he caught sight of the strange symbols as he opened the envelope, and the dark look came into his face, and his eyes blazed wickedly. "The other is a vile thing, an outrage upon friendship and hospitality. It is not signed. Well, so it cannot matter to us." And he calmly held letter and envelope in the flame of the lamp until they were consumed. Then he went on, "The letter to Hawkins, that I shall, of course, send on, since it is yours. Your letters are sacred to me. Your pardon, my friend, that unknowingly I did break the seal. Will you not cover it again?" He held out the letter to me, and with a courteous bow handed me a clean envelope. I could only redirect it and hand it to him in silence. When he went out of the door, I could hear the key turn softly. A minute later, I went over and tried it, and the door was locked. When, an hour or 2 after, the Count came quietly into the room, his coming wakened me, for I had gone to sleep on the sofa. He was very courteous and very cheery in his manner, and seeing that I had been sleeping, he said, "So, my friend, you are tired. Get to bed. There is the surest rest. I may not have the pleasure to talk tonight, since there are many labours to me, but you will sleep, I pray." I passed to my room and went to bed, and, strange to say, slept without dreaming. Despair has its own calms. Please, Jono, you've lived in despair for what, 3 hours? So news. 31st of May. This morning when I woke, I thought I would provide myself with some paper and envelopes from my bag and keep them in my pocket so that I might write in case I should get an opportunity. But again, what a surprise. Again, a shock. It's only a surprise to him. Every scrap of paper was gone, and with it all my notes, my memoranda relating to railways and travel, my letter of credit, in fact, all that might be useful to me were I once outside the castle. I sat and pondered a while, and then some thought occurred to me, and I made search of my portmanteau and in the wardrobe where I placed my clothes. The suit in which I had travelled was gone, and also my overcoat and rug. I could find no trace of them anywhere. This looked like some new scheme of villainy. ... Yeah, he's not despairing. He's still brainstorming. I mean, you can despair and be brainstorming, but nothing. 17th of June. This morning, as I was sitting on the edge of my bed, cudgeling my brains, I heard without a cracking of whips and a pounding and scraping of horses' feet up the rocky path beyond the courtyard. No, he hid his journal earlier. It's okay. It works. I know. I know. And it's not like he's doing research. He's just writing down things he already knows in his diary. Yeah, 1 gold piece. That's gonna... I know it's gonna be a lot of money to them, but at the same time, they know what Dracula is. So it's a lot of money for posting a letter. It is not much money for getting you and all of your friends and family ripped apart by vampires. Jono. With joy, I hurried to the window and saw drive into the yard 2 great lighter wagons, each drawn by 8 sturdy horses, and at the head of each pair a Slovak, with his wide hat, great nail-studded belt, dirty sheepskin, and high boots. They also had their long staves in hand. I ran to the door, intending to descend and try and join them through the main hall, as I thought that way might be open for them. Again, a shock. My door was fastened on the outside. Then I ran to the window and cried out to them. They looked up at me stupidly and pointed. But just then the hitman of the Skaney came out. It's in quotes, hitman. It doesn't mean hitman. It's like the head guy. And seeing them pointing to my window, said something, at which they laughed. Henceforth no effort of mine, no piteous cry or agonized entreaty would make them even look at me. They resolutely turned away. The lighter wagons contained great square boxes with handles of thick rope. These were evidently empty by the ease with which the Slovaks handled them, and by their resonance as they were roughly moved. When they were all unloaded and packed in a great heap in one corner of the yard, the Slovaks were given some money by the Skaney, and spitting on it for luck, lazily went each to his horse's head. Shortly afterwards, I heard the cracking of their whips die away in the distance. Just a lovely little piece of Victorian racism there that I don't think Jono even knows he's thinking about. They looked stupidly at something and they went lazily to get up on their horses. Yeah. One of them smiled at me, stealingly. Good one, Jono. 24th of June, before morning. It's the day before my birthday. Many years ago. Last night the Count left me early and locked himself into his own room. As soon as I dared, I ran up the winding stair and looked out of the window, which opened south. I thought I would watch for the Count, for there is something going on. The Skaney are quartered somewhere in the castle and are doing work of some kind. I know it, for now and then I hear a faraway muffled sound as of mattock and spade, and whatever it is, it must be the end of some ruthless villainy. I had been at the window somewhat less than half an hour when I saw something coming out of the Count's window. I drew back and watched carefully and saw the whole man emerge. It was a new shock to me to find out that he had on the suit of clothes which I had worn whilst travelling here, and slung over his shoulder the terrible bag which I had seen the women take away. There could be no doubt as to his quest, and in my garb too. This, then, is his new scheme of evil, that he will allow others to see me, as they think, so that he may both leave evidence that I have been seen in the towns or villages posting my own letters, and that any wickedness which he may do shall by the local people be attributed to me. It makes me rage to think that this can go on, and whilst I am shut up here a veritable prisoner, but without that protection of the law which is even a criminal's right and consolation. I thought I would watch for the Count's return, and for a long time sat doggedly at the window. Then I began to notice that there were some quaint little specks floating in the rays of the moonlight. They were like the tiniest grains of dust, and they whirled round and gathered in clusters in a nebulous sort of way. I watched them with a sense of soothing, and a sort of calm stole over me. I leaned back in the embrasure in a more comfortable position so that I could enjoy more fully the aerial gambolling. Something made me start up, a low, piteous howling of dogs somewhere far below in the valley, which was hidden from my sight. Louder it seemed to ring in my ears, and the floating motes of dust to take new shapes to the sound as they danced in the moonlight. I found myself struggling to awake to some call of my instincts. Nay, my very soul was struggling, and my half-remembered sensibilities were striving to answer the call. I was becoming hypnotized. Quicker and quicker danced the dust. The moonbeams seemed to quiver as they went by me into the mass of gloom beyond. More and more they gathered, till they seemed to take dim phantom shapes. And then I started, broad awake and in full possession of my senses, and ran screaming from the place. The phantom shapes, which were becoming gradually materialized from the moonbeams, were those of the 3 ghostly women to whom I was doomed. I fled, and felt somewhat safer in my own room, where there was no moonlight, and where the lamp was burning brightly. When a couple of hours had passed, I heard something stirring in the Count's room, something like a sharp wail quickly suppressed, and then there was silence. Deep, awful silence, which chilled me. With a beating heart, I tried the door, but I was locked in my prison and could do nothing. I sat down and simply cried. Oh, Jono. Listening to a Dracula eat a baby is the worst asthma category. I don't know why it exists. As I sat, I heard a sound in the courtyard without, the agonized cry of a woman. I rushed to the window and, throwing it up, peered out between the bars. There, indeed, was a woman with dishevelled hair, holding her hands over her heart as one distressed with running. She was leaning against a corner of the gateway. When she saw my face at the window, she threw herself forward and shouted in a voice laden with menace, "Monster, give me my child." She threw herself on her knees, and raising up her hands, cried the same words in tones which wrung my heart. Then she tore her hair and beat her breast and abandoned herself to all the violences of extravagant emotion. Finally, she threw herself forward, and though I could not see her, I could hear the beating of her naked hands against the door. Somewhere high overhead, probably on the tower, I heard the voice of the Count calling in his harsh metallic whisper. His call seemed to be answered from far and wide by the howling of wolves. Before many minutes had passed, a pack of them poured, like a pent-up dam when liberated, through the wide entrance into the courtyard. There was no cry from the woman, and the howling of the wolves was but short. Before long they streamed away singly, licking their lips. I could not pity her, for I knew now what had become of her child, and she was better dead. What shall I do? What can I do? How can I escape from this dreadful thing of night and gloom and fear? I was checking how much left of the chapter we got. Oh, that's ages. My eyes were way too big for my stomach on this one. Right. Yes, this is actually a good place to, mid-chapter stop because it's the 25th of June, so I'll remember it's my birthday. Yeah, I'm going to continue with chapter 4 tomorrow, or Hoji Marjorie Kemp tomorrow. And then the day after that is D&D day. D&D day. And then it will be Dracula. So on Monday, I think. Yeah. Thanks very much for joining the stream. I know it wasn't as conversational as they have been lately, but I enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed it too. Alex, I hope you enjoy how little you missed. It was fun. It was fun. It's like watching a movie and yelling at the characters, but we can all yell at them. Pretty good. And peel my lashes off. I put them on for you. No, I didn't. I put them on because I couldn't be bothered doing eye makeup. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here and for enjoying Dracula and everything, and thanks for being here on a shitty day for me. Thank you all. And yeah, tomorrow we'll see how we go. I would like to. Oh, I did it. Oh, good. If you have any pics, send me some. That would be awesome. If you want to, you don't have to. That was not an open invitation to everybody watching this video to send me pics. That was to Joshua to send me pics of him at the Alice Cooper concert. It's a specific thing. Awesome. Okay, well, I will see you all back here. Different bat time, same bat channel. Bats and vampires.